Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name's Claudia Anderson, and I will do a formal introduction in a second, but we're just waiting for you all to file through. So I'll give it around a minute. Quite a few people signed up for the call today, so I'll just give it around a minute to let everyone file in. Let me just see if you can all hear me. Hopefully you can. If someone could give me a quick hello or a quick yes, I can hear you in the chat. That will be brilliant. We can't take, due to the size of today's call, we can't take raised hands in this session. But anything that you want to ask, please do pop in the chat. We've also got the Q&A function, but I will be in the chat throughout the session, answer any questions as much as possible. And yeah, we've still got people filing in, so I'll wait till the number kind of slows down a little minute. But I hope you're all having a brilliant afternoon so far. And thank you to all of you who are giving me some positive feedback in the chat that you can hear me. It's a great way to start a session today. Okay, let's have a look. Brilliant. Okay, I'm going to get started. So as I just said, my name is Claudia Anderson. I'm the Membership Engagement Manager here at RCOT, and it's great to have so many of you with us today. I want to say a big hello to those of you who are joining your first Maximise Your Membership session. If you haven't been to one of our events before, lovely to have you here for the first time, and if you have, welcome back. I just want to start by saying that this session really is for you, so please do use this as a chance to interact and make sure that you are saying hello in the chat, which you can see some of you already are. We'll do our best to get around as many questions as possible. We want this session to be really interactive as much as we can, but there are a lot of you interested in today's session. So we will also share contact details for any follow-up and anyone that we might not be able to get around to in today's period of time, which is 1 hour. So we'll do our best. A couple of housekeeping bits. The age-old question, yes, this session will be recorded. We will share the PowerPoint and we will share the session recording round with you all in the next couple of days. In the interest of accessibility and making sure that we can access as many people as possible with our services, we do just take a little bit of time to make sure that our captions are, and my kind of lovely Northeast accent, people can see it in the captions. So it just we have a little bit of a lag between ending the session today and getting the slides out to you, but do not worry, you will get them by email in the next couple of days. If we could just have the next slide, please. Brilliant, Pav, thank you so much. So you can see we've got a really jam-packed session today, and we're focusing on all things CPD Portfolio. So if you're in the wrong room, or if you've come to the wrong event, if you're not trying to understand more about your CPD portfolio, then this session might not be for you. But we're going to be running through the basics of logging in, how to personalize your portfolio, how to get started with your recordings, and everything you can do to try and make yourself feel as prepared as possible for potential audit later on in the year. So I'm also joined today by my co-host Emma, who will introduce herself to you in a few minutes. But the first thing that I want to do is start off with a bit of a temperature check. This is not a test. This is not, your answers are not going to be recorded. It will not be marked against your record. But one thing I want to do is just see where we're all at in terms of our CPD portfolio journey. So if you bear with me 1 second, I'm going to embrace technology here for a sec and launch a poll with you all. So hopefully you can see a question on the screen there. The question is also on the slides, and you should have a pop-up over the screen for you, which basically asks where are you at in your CPD portfolio journey. I think it's shortened because the display, but it is the CPD portfolio journey. So if you've not yet checked it out, you're kind of brand new to this, you want to know all about it. You've had a look, you're using it all the time, which maybe we could go along to one of our intermediate sessions, because this one is for people who are trying to get into the habit of using it, haven't kind of got started yet. So I'm just looking at the results there, and I'll share them all with you so you can see you're all pretty much in the same boat. So we've got some people who haven't checked it out yet. Some people have had a look. They've thought, oh, this looks like a really good idea, but haven't kind of got into it yet. And then some people are trying to get more into the habit of using it, which means that you are all in the right place. So getting started with today's session, just before you kind of get comfortable, I'm now going to ask you another question. So let me just do this. So the other question that I have is confidence with the CPD portfolio. So for those of you who have said, I'm not sure yet, I haven't logged in, that's absolutely fine. You can be a number one. For those of you who are number 5, maybe you can help me answer some of the questions in the chat. But I feel like we're all kind of going to be in the start of our journey. So just taking a bit of a temperature check. How confident do you feel? And hopefully what we'll do is at the end of the session, we'll do the poll again, and we're trying to make you feel a little bit more confident. So the good news is, again, you're all pretty much in the same boat. So kind of not knowing where to start, not so confident. We've got some people that are feeling a little bit more confident, which is very good to hear. So we will be asking more questions as we go throughout the session, but for now, I am going to hand you over to my colleague, Emma Grover.
Hi everyone, it's fantastic to have you all here. So as Claudia just said, looking at the poll results, you're all in the right place, which is wonderful. And if you aren't familiar already about what your CPD portfolio actually is, it's a single place, an online place for you to capture all of your lifelong learning and development. It's applicable to you no matter your role or career stage. So every RCOT member has access to their very own CPD portfolio. It allows us to record activities, learning, reflections, and evidence on the go as well, because there's an app that you can use if you prefer. And it really supports us to meet the HCPC CPD standards. So that's a set of standards to definitely go away and have a look at if you're not familiar with those. Those are the standards that we're assessed against if we are selected for audit. But also there are a set of standards that we have to kind of tick a box every couple of years just to say we are definitely meeting these CPD standards and we are engaging in effective CPD. Your portfolio is included in your RCOT membership and it's provided by CPD Me. Next slide, please. So just before we get into today's session, I'll probably properly introduce myself. So my name's Emma. I am an occupational therapist and also the strategic lead for professional development here at RCOT. I'm going to try really hard not to start coughing today, so bear with me if I have to mute at any point. I've been struggling a bit, but hopefully my voice will hold out. And just to give you a heads up, so for this session, we're taking a slightly different approach to previous webinars that we've done. What we've done is we've broken this down into sort of sections and we've recorded some videos which we're going to play for you. You can have a watch and then we'll take sort of some questions within each section. We will have one eye on the time because we have a lot of content to sort of get through, but we really want to try and answer as many of your questions as possible. So Pav, if we go on to the next slide, please. And just before we press play on our first video, there are 2 different ways you can log in. And the first way is through our website. Now, we're not going to, that top bullet point that you can see on the slide there, that's just something that you can then click on to actually go to your portal. And that's how you can get logged in via our website and via your member portal. We're also going to have a look in a little bit just about how to get logged in, via the app. But one thing I would say is if you've never logged on before, it's better to log in through your member portal first and foremost, and then via the app. And I'll explain that a bit later, but it just prevents us from setting up duplicate accounts. So Pav, I'm going to hand over to you to play the first. When you come to the Royal College of Occupational Therapists webpage, you'll go to the login button at the top of the screen and enter in your login details. If you click on this button at the top and manage your accounts, this will take you to your member portal. And in this left-hand menu, you can see the option to click on CPD Portfolio. Here you'll find some information, but most importantly, a button where you can access your CPD portfolio now. Select Login, and it will take you through to your very own CPD portfolio. Okay, if we go on to the next slide, please. So that's how you get logged in via your member portal. And then you've also got the option to download CPD Me's free app. So if you search for it in any of the app stores, you can see the graphic on the slide there. It says CPD Me. So that's the logo or the graphic to look for. Now, when you log in, what we want you to do is log in, not sign up. So just use the same email address that you use for your RCOT membership to log in. That's really important because your CPD portfolio is linked to your primary RCOT membership email address. And if you do accidentally use a different email address, it's very easily resolvable, don't worry. It just means that you might end up with a duplicate account, and we'll just ask CPD to merge those for you. Once you've put in your email address, you then click on forgotten password, and that way the app will generate sort of a one-off secure password which you can use for app login, and none of that then affects your RCOT login details. I think some of you, I think I can see the chat popping up in the corner just to say that this website might be a bit slow, and sometimes what we find is when we have so many of us trying to log on at the same time, it can impact that. And like Claudia said, changes are coming, so hopefully that will improve, and just bear with us. Don't worry if you're getting stuck right now and you're trying to get logged on as we're doing the webinar. You can keep trying throughout the webinar, and we can also help you if you're still having problems afterwards. That's not a problem. So next slide, please. Some people have had, and this is actually really not a big thing anymore, but just in case it applies to you, some people have difficulty logging in. So we just say try clearing your browser history, just because sometimes cookies can get stuck and then might block you being able to log in. If you're on the call and you used CPD before we launched it as a member benefit, then really it's just about checking that you're using the same email address for both. And if you aren't, then just get in touch with us. We can resolve that between us and CPD. We can get that sorted for you and make sure that everything is under one single account. Next slide, please. Okay, we're going to go to some Q&A now. Claudia, I don't know if I'll admit, I do it every time. I'm not great at multitasking, so I've got one eye on the chat, but I'm probably missing.
I've been keeping an eye on the chat. There's a couple of questions come through. There's also a couple of questions come through in the Q&A, and not necessarily related to logging in per se, but we'll go through a couple of them. So people thinking about how we can look at their log and upload things to their CPD portfolio that they've done in the past. We can do that. We'll go through kind of added entries throughout the session. Obviously some feedback about the website. As I've said, we're getting a new website this spring, and I will be sharing some more details about that at the end of the session, but it's all part of our digital transformation in terms of delivering a better service for our members. We know that some of our processes are a little bit clunky online. So yeah, please do watch this space over the next few weeks, and some very exciting new things launching, which I will go into a little bit more detail at the end of the session. We've got some questions around anonymity. So removing where you work when you're doing when you are making evidence, inputting your evidence. Sorry, I'm just trying to read the question and talk at the same time. So uploading the evidence on the CPD portfolio, do they need to remove where they work?
So with anonymity, the most important thing to consider is the client information or the patient information that we're working with. That absolutely needs to be anonymized. Nobody is monitoring your RCOT CPD portfolio. That's your space to record everything that you want and need to stay on track with your CPD. And then the other time you'd need to consider anonymity is when you are actually, if you were selected for audit and you were submitting a profile to HCPC, they would expect for all client information to be anonymous too. So it's less important about your workplace. That's a choice. You can obviously anonymize that if you want to, but the most crucial thing is making sure that we don't include any identifiable information. Sometimes we get asked that question around colleague and student information as well. I think it's good practice to anonymize the bits that you can, and or seek permission of colleagues, whether they want, they might not want their, if they've given you feedback, for example, they might want their details anonymized, but have that conversation would be my advice.
Yeah, brilliant. And things like the work logo, the logo on the supervision notes, that's personal choice. You can take it out or leave it in.
Yeah, because with anything that you're submitting to HCPC, you'd be giving an overview of your current sort of work setting and recent work history anyway. So you might be talking about where you work and the role that you do, just to give them a picture of who you are, so that they can assess whether the CPD you're doing is relevant to the role you're doing.
Lovely, thanks, Emma. And the next question is just around accessing accessing CPD. So CPD access is included in RCOT membership. This is not the only way that you can access CPD. You can go off and buy it on your own independently. but for RCOT members, it's one of your member benefits. So you get access as part of your RCOT membership to the premium CPD Me service. The next question is just, I attended a webinar from RCOT. Will that transfer over automatically to the portfolio? We do some automated recordings for some of our bigger events, but we want to get you into the habit of going into the CPD portfolio and actually doing it yourself, because an automated recording from RCOT is not enough to warrant evidence. You will then need to go in and evidence that more yourself. So what we'll do at the end of today's session is you can all go away and put some time in your diary to add this session to your CPD portfolio to get in the swing of it. A couple of questions. So I've downloaded the app and it says my email or password is incorrect. It should be the same as your login for RCOT. That's right. So it sounds like you're doing the right thing, Martha. I know on the previous slide, sorry, Emma, go on.
Yeah, just on that note, your email will be the same, but in the app, you don't use the same password that you use for RCOT. What you have to do with the app is you have to put in your the same email address that you use for RCOT, and then you have to click forgot password, so that it generates you generate a one-off password for the app use. So it won't, the idea is that it won't affect your RCOT login details at all. But if you're still having any problems with app login, either reach out to us or we can pop the CPD Me team's email address in the chat in a moment, because they're really responsive as well and they can get you sorted too.
Yeah, they're really responsive. So if you are struggling with the app, if it's the first time logging into the app, just pop your email address in, click forgotten password, and it'll create you kind of an app password, because how you would normally access it is if you're on desktop, you go through the RCOT website and it's all part of the single sign-on process. But this is just creating you that kind of little gateway moment in your app. So hopefully that answers your question, Martha. We've got some questions around how many things we should add as CPD, and we have got a session, a part of the session at the end talking about CPD habits. So we'll cover that off in the end session, because we've got a lot to go through today, and I don't want to say things that we're then going to repeat at the end. So Emma, shall we move on to actually using the portfolio once you're logged in?
Yeah, that sounds perfect. Thank you. This next section is going to be about personalizing our portfolio. If we go on to the next slide, and we can go ahead and press play. Thanks, Pav. Once you've logged into your CPD portfolio, you'll come to your dashboard, and this is the view that you can see on the screen now. So this is personal to you, and all of the colourful donuts here will populate based on what you've input into your diary entries and the reflections you've recorded so far. There are a few ways that you can personalise this. You can either click on the profile button here, go to the top right hand corner and click on your name and select profile, or just click this button next to dashboard which says customise. When you do that, you can have a little explore and a play around with dashboard customization. So you can toggle on and off any of the bits that you do or don't want to show. There's the option to have the log out after 15 minutes of no activity enabled. You can also customize what you map to every time you put in a diary entry. So if you wanted to map to the 4 pillars of practice, you could toggle this on, and then you'll see that appear in your diary entries. That isn't mandatory, it's not something you have to do. So for example, if you were selected for HCPC CPD audit, it wouldn't be held against you if you didn't map into the 4 pillars of practice. But if you're somebody who's using the career development framework and wants to think about how your CPD activities fit across those 4 pillars of practice, then that can be a really useful feature to have toggled on. And then finally at the bottom down here, you've got some notification options where you can decide when you get notifications sent to you, and then you can save those settings. So have a little play. It'll be different for each of us, but I just wanted you to know where you can find them. The next thing I want to show you is in the profile section of your CPD portfolio. So again, you can access your profile either through clicking your name in the top right hand corner or by selecting profile in the left hand menu here. And this is what you'll see. It's in this section that we can personalize our portfolio even more by adding some entry tags. Now, the entry tags are up to you, completely up to you whether you use them, whether you don't, and if you do, how many you add. And the things that you add, the tags that you add, can be really personal to you, your area of work, things you're working on developing. So I'm going to show you how to add one. I'm going to use supervision as an example of a tag. But again, these can be anything. So you just type in what you want to use and then click the add button. And then you can see here that it's just added it to the bottom of my list of tags. If I added one and I wanted to remove it, I can then just actually exit or press the sort of X button and it will delete that one out. Now, the reason why it's really helpful to use entry tags is that it allows us to filter our CPD by tag. And this is really handy if you're wanting to reflect back on CPD activities over time that all count towards a similar topic or area of learning and development for you. If I click onto the entries page now in my portfolio, this is going to bring up all of my CPD records. And I'm going to just demonstrate to you that if I was to pick the tag practice educator, then what that's going to do is filter out all of the sort of bits of CPD that I have recorded in relation to my role as a practice educator. And this is really, really handy for a couple of reasons. So one is that if I was to take on a student again in the near future, then I would actually revisit all of this just to think about what my reflections were, what my learning was, and that's going to set me up for the next student that I support on placements, and think about what it is that I want to continue, what it is that I might want to do better, and what it is that I might want to do differently. And another reason why tags are really helpful is that if you are selected for CPD audit and you want to pick out some really good examples of CPD which demonstrate meeting the HCPC CPD standards, this is a great way to do it. So what I could do is pick being a practice educator as an example and then talk about the CPD that I've done and how I've gone on then to apply that learning to my work in my role as a practice educator. So I think just have a think about what tags might feel right for you. There is no right or wrong. It is completely personal to you, but it's a really great way to personalise your portfolio. And later on, when we look at adding a CPD diary entry, you'll see how you can actually tag each piece of CPD that you've input. Just jumping back into the profile section where we were a moment ago looking at entry tags. I just wanted to highlight some of the different information boxes that you can choose to fill in if you want to. You don't have to, and some of them you might find aren't relevant for you personally, because the CPD product is actually built for lots of different professions to use. So obviously you can just skip any of the bits that don't feel relevant to you. But you can fill in your profession if you want to. You can add any sort of business or website associated with where you work if you would like to. You can also type in your qualifications. And then as you move along to these other tabs, this additional information box, these boxes actually mirror what we would need to provide as part of CPD audit if we were selected. My advice would be that sometimes you'll find yourself writing a little summary of your work, or maybe it's a personal statement. So for example, if you're applying for a new job, or perhaps you're applying for sort of a funding opportunity or a volunteer opportunity, and what I would just say is this is a great place to keep some of that. So you might be writing it for the purpose of something else, but why not copy and paste it into here? It means that in the event of being selected for audit, you've already got some sort of text to go from or tweak or build on rather than starting from scratch. So it is really completely optional, but it's up to you if you want to start sort of building that information in here. And then just in the HCPC information box, it's just a space where you can start typing examples or evidence that you've got that just help you to demonstrate that you're meeting these standards. None of this is mandatory, like I said before, but it's just one of the areas that you can explore within your profile if you want to add any further information here, or just be aware that it's there so that if you've got other information you can use, you could always sort of copy and paste it and store it in here too.
Lovely. So that's a little bit around personalising your CPD portfolio. Now, we do have some questions on this in the chat, Emma. So I'm just going to pick them up now. Bear with me one sec. So let's have a look. We've got, how do we save a personal copy of our CPD in case we stop having access to the software?
So on the left-hand menu in your CPD portfolio, there's a portfolio section. If you click on that, you've got the option there to basically build and export. So you can export all of the information you've input into a PDF document.
Brilliant. So you can just download it all, can't you? And then just ping it straight off to a PDF. Let's have a look at some other ones. Can you upload supervisions, reflections you have done, like using the 5-minute reflection tool?
Yeah, absolutely. So this tool, we'll look at it in a bit more detail in later sections. It does have some templates you can use, but you might have things you already use already, like the 5-minute reflection tools, and it's great actually. If you're doing that, fill it in and then just upload that as your evidence. You don't need to create yourself extra work.
Brilliant. Someone's just asked if we can go through the export information again, please. So it's on the left-hand side of your homepage. We don't. The reason why we have to insert videos here, as you can probably see as we've gone through the session, is we have to grey out certain information. So all of Emma's personal information, as it's her CPD portfolio, would be on the screen. So that's why we have to kind of input videos. So apologies that we can't do almost like a live demo for you with certain features. But what we can do is talk through them with you. This session will be recorded, and we'll also send you up all of the follow-up resources as well. But there is, we can do a walkthrough document on how to export, can't we?
Yeah, we can. And also CPD Me have a suite of videos on their YouTube channel. So they'll have one specifically that shows you how to do it. And it is quite fun to have a little explore and a bit of a play with it, really. So in the portfolio option on your left-hand menu, it will just say create your portfolio. And when you click on that, it will give you lots of different tick boxes and you can build the bits of information that you want to export. So you won't then lose it all. You'll have a copy of it for your records.
Brilliant. Oh, brilliant. Good to know you've got the app, Heather. And just can we include email feedback and supervision documents that reflect other people's names and email addresses in our CPD portfolio? So I think we kind of covered that a little bit in the first question, in the first set of questions, but anonymizing patients and service users, that's kind of the golden rule?
Yeah, that's a real big golden rule. And those examples you've given are perfectly really good pieces of CPD evidence to include. And it's your CPD portfolio. So again, you're storing everything you need there. And it is good practice to anonymize details, but you might have your supervisor might not be worried about their name and/or email address being included in that. So I would just say have the conversation, but absolutely anything that could identify a patient or a client or a service user must be anonymized.
Thanks for that, Emma. And let's just have a quick look. How do I upload email or paper CPD certificates that are from other providers? So RCOT automatic logins, I've got some of them. It's Judith's got some of those on our record, but how does she upload other things? And I think we're going to go through that in the next section, aren't we?
Yeah, so
things.
every time you put in a diary entry or a reflection, you've got the option to upload documents. We're going to cover some more videos, including how to use the app, and there are different ways you can upload on the app. So what I'll say is let's watch the videos, and then if you've still got a question after seeing that, just ask it again, and we can sort of cover it in a bit more detail.
Brilliant. Okay, let's move on because I've got an eye on the time. We're about halfway through, so I think we're going well, but let's think about diary entries.
So really quick note here, we've got a couple of different videos to show you. The first one you're going to see is from Andrew, who is the founder and owner of CPD Me. So bear with us because we're going to be moving through a few different tabs, and then you'll see a second video that I've pre-recorded as well. So there might just be a slight delay between the two, but off we go and see how it goes.
Creating an entry on the mobile app is simple. Once the app has loaded up, simply click the blue cross at the bottom of the screen and then select the Record a Diary option. A CPD diary is anything that you've done historically in the past, planning to do today, or planning to do for the future, so you can amend things that you've historically done, that you are currently planning to do today, and that you also plan to do for the future using this one simple form. In the title option, you simply need to type the title of the event or the learning activity that you are taking place. In the hours box, you simply need to put the amount of hours that you took part in that learning activity. The start date will automatically default to today, but if you need to, you can backdate that by clicking on the date option and going back, changing month or years as appropriate. You don't need to select the end date unless this particular learning activity has gone beyond several days or beyond a 24-hour period. Once you're happy, click Save and Continue. Your governing body should default to whichever you have set in your profile, but you can change this option, which allows you to equally use this mobile app to record your CPD for multiple governing bodies. The Arranged In option is how you've taken part in this learning, so whether you've done it as part of your job role, whether you've done it as part of being a student at university or at college, or whether you've taken part in learning in your own time. The category this CPD activity relates to depends on whichever category this relates to in relation to how you've taken part in this learning. So for this particular one, I'm going to put on here that it's a thank you letter. If I want to map this to the NHS Knowledge and Skills Framework, I can do so, but I also have the option to hide that in my entries. Click on Save and Continue. I can then select this text box, and this is the box that is asking me what I have done, why I have done it, and how this might change or influence my practice. And if I need some support, I can click the simple question mark and answer those questions. The great thing about the mobile app is you can also click the dictate option at the bottom right hand corner, and you can dictate your text into this field. I recently attended a patient who kindly sent me a thank you letter, full stop. I recall attending this patient, and it was an elderly gentleman who I managed to leave at home with his wife Tina, who were being cared for by external carers, full stop. They had suffered a very small injury, and throughout my skills and knowledge I was able to apply some of this and leave them safely at home with some safety nets and some further advice, including worsening and safety netting, full stop. As a result, this couple kindly wrote a thank you letter via their daughter, which came into my NHS trust, full stop. As you can see, it often is very good if you're in a nice quiet environment, and if you need to make any changes or amendments, you can simply just hold your finger on the screen and then you can appropriately change it or amend it as necessary. Once you're happy, click on Save and Continue, and then because this is mapped to HCPC, I can map it to my standards, but please don't tick these standards if you don't understand why you're mapping them to your particular piece of work. Once you're happy, click Save and Continue. You then have the option to add a web address, so you can add a web address if there's e-learning or online learning involved. If you need a reminder of this particular piece of CPD to update it in a period of time, then click that option and the app and the email system will remind you in around 12 months to review this. And if you need to capture and attach some evidence, you can do so by clicking the capture option and then select evidence from My Files, from the scanner option, from your camera, gallery, voice recording or files. So for this instance, I'm going to do document scanner, and I'm going to scan the thank you letter that I got sent. Now, as long as you're in a well-lit environment, that should nicely shape off the thank you letter, but if you need to amend it, you can do so by touching the four corners. Once you're happy with that, click onto Next, and then you can see there that it's nicely squared off that thank you letter. But this particular thank you letter does contain some sensitive information, so this now is going to ask me if I want to censor any part of it, and that might be because I don't want to include that within my portfolio, or there might be sensitive information that actually I don't want to be revealed to a second or third party. So click yes to censor or no to not. I then have the option to simply touch the screen, and this will blank off anything at all that contains anything that's identifiable within this particular piece of uploaded evidence. So as you can see, it's very easy for me to simply touch the screen and amend that, or click onto it and move it around if necessary. And if I need to correct that, I simply touch the big blue button at the bottom right, and then that will allow me to decensor it. Once I'm happy with that, I can simply click onto the Done option at the very top, and then that will save that particular piece of entry. I can tag this as thank you letter, which will easily allow me to find it at some point in the future. And as you can see there now, I have my entries. I have the thank you letter, and if I click onto preview, that will preview that particular entry for me with the text that I have dictated and also a copy of the thank you letter behind it. If you need to amend or change that particular entry, you can preview, edit, share or delete it by simply tapping on that specific entry. If you have any questions, please do drop us an email, or of course you can WhatsApp us by scanning the QR code or directly from inside the app.
So we're now just going to see this kind of the same thing on website as well. So I know we've got some people in the chat just saying, you know, I'm not really keen on the app. I want to use web. So this is the same piece of content, but if you prefer to use the website, this is how we'll go through it on the website. So please play the video, Pav.
Next, we'll have a quick look just at what adding a diary entry looks like on the web version. So we've already heard from Andrew on how to sort of move through some of these fields on the app. And a lot of what Andrew says still applies here, but I'll just scroll through it slowly so you can see the similarities. That title that Andrew mentioned is searchable. The option to record how many hours, even though that's not something we're measured by as HCPC registrants. So we don't have to complete a certain number of hours of CPD, but the option is there to record it if you'd like to. We've got our start and end date, our governing body, and then the two different drop downs for the time in which your CPD activity was arranged, but also the category that your CPD activity relates to. What I will say about these is that this isn't an exhaustive list. So what you might find is that for certain activities you do, there might not be an exact fit. And that's okay. Just have a look through and choose one that you feel is a good fit. And if you really can't find one, then there are some more generic ones such as CPD event that might sort of cover a broader spectrum of CPD activity types. Again, in here, when you click into the box where you have an opportunity just to reflect on some of your learning, it comes up with some question prompts beneath it. So getting you to think about why you selected this learning, how you think it will influence the way you do your job, and how your learning will benefit the people that you're working with. As we scroll down, you can see the HCPC CPD standards to map to, and here is where the tags you've entered earlier will appear in the pick list if you have input some. So you press the drop down and all of the tags that you input under your profile section will appear here in order for you to then be able to select. If you have your mapping to frameworks toggled on, so right back at the beginning, when we were in our settings and we were looking at customizing our dashboard, some of you might have the option to map to the 4 pillars of practice or the NHS knowledge and skills framework toggled on. If you do, they will appear here. And every time you input a diary entry, you'll be able to then map against those accordingly. You can enter the website address relating to the activity if you've got one, and then you can also upload any supporting evidence that you've got here.
Okay, brilliant. So that was a little bit around adding diary entries, and hopefully that helps to just give you a visual and a walkthrough of what it is like to record a diary entry, how you can either scan something in on your phone and have a look at it that way, or how you can upload your documents on the web. And it's actually lovely to hear that we've got a bit of a mixture of people who love using the app and love to be on the go, and some people who much more kind of feel a lot more at home on the website. And that's why we've tried to create resources for both of them. Let me just have a look at questions. Emma, is there anything that you want to chat through while I find most?
Yeah, I've just seen one. So apologies, this won't be in order, but I just saw a note, which is a really good question around, do you have to choose between using the app or the web version? And the answer is no, you can use both and they will actually sync. It's one account linked to one email address. So whether you use both of them or one of them, you should be able to access your records in both places. If for any reason you log in and you can't see any of the CPD records you've put in, it will just be a case of having a duplicate account. So if that happens to you, don't try not to panic. I know it's easier said than done because I would be too. But just reach out to us and we can work with CPD to resolve it and make sure that everything you've input is visible under one account.
Yeah, brilliant. We've got a couple of bits in the chat here. So Judith was asking, is the how it benefited me section where all of the reflection pieces would go?
So we're going to come on to adding reflections in a moment, but with every diary entry that you put in, there is a reflective element. And you're right, it's that box that says, how has this learning benefited me? And there's no right or wrong with how much detail you put in there. For me personally, I tend to keep that quite brief and I note down, usually in sort of a paragraph or bullet point form, just what my really key learning things are, just enough for me to remember what it was that I really took away from that learning activity. But no one's monitoring it. And you'll get into a bit of a rhythm about how it works for you and how much detail you want to put in there.
Yeah, I think there was a question further up in the chat, and I'm just trying to find it, around have we got any members who have been through audit and have used CPD Portfolio to help them with their membership? And am I right in thinking, Emma, that we haven't, this only got rolled into our RCOT membership in 2024 and there hasn't been an audit yet? So audit is in 2025, which is this year. So we haven't got those use cases. But what we do have is we are setting up a kind of support group for if anyone is called up for audit and how we can help you that way, aren't we? So there isn't a use case yet because we introduced it at the end of 2023, kind of start of 2024. And now, yeah, we haven't had an audit since, so this is the first time, isn't it, Emma?
Yeah, it is the first time. I have had conversations with a handful of members who were using CPD Me before, and we rolled it out as part of our member benefits. And the sort of general feedback has been really positive in that everything was in one place. It didn't feel like such a daunting task. Just to add to what Claudia was saying, we are going to bring people together. Members together if they want to be brought together, that is, for peer support around going through audit. So we'll be able to gather more information around that. And also later this year, we're going to do a focus session specifically on how you would then collate your information from your portfolio and submit it if you were selected for audit. So that's going to be a session for later in the year.
Yeah, and we've got a kind of whole programme. So we started off this year with our CPD reset, which hopefully helped and looked at habit building and how you can start building up good habits around CPD. We'll go into that a little bit in a minute, but the recording of that event is available. I know I can see a message from Natasha in the chat, and Natasha, maybe we'll reach out to you separately. Emma, if you can reach out to Natasha in the chat separately, just around how we can, but there are some questions coming up around how often you need to record CPD, and we have got a section on that coming in 2 minutes. But I think another question is just, is reflection enough for evidence? Do you need a certificate? And I know certificates are an age-old thing, Emma, and I know that you have always tried to move us away from certificate culture, as it were.
Yeah, so people do and can collect certificates as evidence of attendance. But please don't, don't worry if you don't have a certificate, because actually a certificate on its own isn't enough to evidence the learning that's happened. What the certificate does is it evidences our attendance, but actually the reflective element of what you're recording is far more important, because that's what HCPC want to see. They want to see that the difference that our learning has made. What have we learned? What have we reflected on? What are we going to do differently as a result? So the reflective element is far, far more important and better evidence than a certificate which just proves that you attended. So you can also be creative with how you evidence attendance. So even for something like today, we circulate copies of the slides or we put them on our website. So even just including a link to the webpage, that's demonstrating the resources and materials that you've watched and engaged with today.
Yeah, definitely. And I know there's a question in the chat there around how you access the previous events that we've done. This year we've got a homepage, and I will pop the homepage in the chat, but that's got all of our event recordings on for CPD sessions as part of the Maximise membership program, which is the program that we've got today. If you, I did say at the top of the session, but because of the size of today's sessions, a couple of hundred of you on the call, If you have a hand raised, we can't go to individual hands, but if you do have a question, you've got your hand raised, please do pop it in the chat. And as you can see, we're trying to get around all of the questions, so your question will be answered, but just pop it either in the Q&A or in the chat. There's a question from Emma Louise, fellow Emma. Can you add longer 6-month courses like the best interest assessor to your CPD? And would you record it over the 6 months you're doing it, or just once you've passed?
I would, yeah, absolutely, yes. That's a fantastic example of CPD.
Yeah.
When you enter it into your system, you have a start and end date, so you can always reflect that it's happened over that period of time. For me personally, I would record it as it's happening, because you're going to be having so many learning reflections along the way that are really valid, and that you'll be applying to your work along the way anyway, even before, you know, getting the official sort of sign off or qualification. There is no right or wrong, so it's completely up to you whether you wait to record that until you have qualified, but don't forget to capture all of that amazing learning that's happening as you do it.
Brilliant. Let me just see. People who are having technical issues with CPD Me and logging in, please do. Yeah, we'll pick those up with you separately. We've got the hello at email. You can also email CPD Me. We can't walk through each problem on the call today. But please do check your junk folder, see if the email password is reset has gone to spam. There's a couple of things that I can just suggest, but Emma might have some more bits that you can pop in the chat as well. So moving us on very slightly, because we've only got 15 minutes left, we're going to have a look at recording reflections too.
Yeah, perfect. Let's head straight into the video. An essential part of CPD is reflection, and HCPC have an expectation that we'll be reflective practitioners and actively engage in meaningful reflection to be able to apply our learning to our work. And HCPC do have guidance on their web pages, which you might find helpful if you haven't checked that out before. But this is where the CPD portfolio really supports us to record our reflections. So you can access the reflection section at this point in the left-hand menu. And similarly with other pages, you can click on the tool button at the top if you want to be guided through the page or have a reminder of some of the features. You can go on to add your title and then either backdate, today date, or forward date your reflective entry before writing a really brief introduction of your reflective entry. But this feature here is what enables us to select our preferred reflective model to use. Now, we as in RCOT don't recommend or prescribe particular reflective models, and many of you might actually have your own preferred reflective models or styles, and many members I've spoken to have actually really enjoyed exploring some of these. They hadn't heard of them all before. Really, you can have a little play with it and see which ones you like, because the key message here really is just around us being able to recognise why reflecting is such an important part of effective CPD. It is what helps us to make sense of what we've learned, like I mentioned earlier, and then understand how we're going to apply that to our work. It also helps us to identify areas we need to actually keep developing, and this is what actually helps us to demonstrate that we're meeting HCPC CPD standards 3 and 4. Now, if I go back to the page, and I'll select Rolf et al. For now, but you can see that whichever model you select, the fields below will auto-populate. And then when you click into each of those boxes, additional prompts will come up, which is really handy because it saves you having to sort of have that, bring that reflective model up in a different window or look it up just to remind yourself. And those prompts can really help you to sort of guide your thinking and help you build that reflective entry. So we often get asked, what makes, like, when should it be a CPD diary entry versus a reflection? And some really general advice would be try not to overthink this, if possible, because there is no right or wrong. So this is your portfolio, it's your place to keep everything relating to your continuous learning and development. Nobody is monitoring what you put in here. And the way I tend to view it, if it's helpful to share, is that my CPD diary entries are, you know, what I do for every piece of CPD. It's my overall record of activities. It's the list that I'm building over time to demonstrate the CPD activities that I'm doing. every now and then there'll be a topic or a situation or like a period of time or an experience that I want to and need to reflect on a bit more deeply to unpick it. And that's when I'll personally choose to then record a reflection. So that will look different for all of us. And just to stress that point about this portfolio being your space, the other part is that we often get asked, well, how much should I be putting in these fields, for example? Well, as with other aspects of CPD, HCPC aren't prescriptive on how detailed our reflections need to be. It is much more important for us to focus on the impact and outcome of our reflections, because that's what relates to our career growth, our development, and the benefits to either the service we work in or the people that we're working with. And so just remember that you can record reflections however you like to. You can obviously use any of these models on here and then go through and fill in all of the boxes. Some of you might want to use more creative or visual methods, which you could either upload to your portfolio as an image, for example, or yeah, basically however you've recorded a reflection, don't create yourself extra work. So if I had recorded a reflection outside of the portfolio and had it saved as a document, I could go in here and I could just put see attached in each of these boxes. So I could just copy that down into each of these if I wanted to. And then I could go down here and upload the document. So just the message here is try not to create yourself extra work, sort of use what you have available, think about what your preferences are, and just have a go, and you'll be really surprised at how quickly you're able to build up a really vibrant portfolio. And it can be really rewarding actually to look back and reflect on all of that growth that's happening over time.
Lovely. And I know we've got some questions come in on recording reflections. Emma, I'm going to do a bit of a quick fire questions at you at the minute, just because we are running short on time. So question number one, do you have to use a reflective model?
No, you don't have to. It's up to you how
Perfect.
you record. HCPC don't prescribe that.
Brilliant. Is there a voice record feature in the reflection section?
There's a voice record feature in the app, but not on
Yeah.
the web version. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you want to do your voice recording, you can download the app. If you are using the RCOT 5-minute reflection template, could you upload it here?
You could, and you can just copy and paste see attachment in the fields for whichever reflective model that you've ticked.
Brilliant. And the other question is, do you need to quote citations in reflections?
So I tend to, if I'm writing a more in-depth reflective piece, then I will tend to do that just to make sure that my reflection has an element of evidence base. I don't do that for every single reflection I write. So again, it will be partly down to personal preference and or then what you want to build on or develop a bit further if you were submitting it for audit, for example.
Brilliant. Can you upload presentations that you've created?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I sometimes reflect in presentation form as well on PPT on PowerPoint slides.
Yeah.
But yeah, get creative.
Brilliant. And the last question, which is a little bit longer, but we'll do our best to answer it as quickly as possible, is struggle with how much detail to put into reflections. I mean,
This
it's
is a
not
really
one
common.
size. It's not one
Yeah,
size fits all, is it?
it's
That's the
not one
issue.
size fits all. It's a really common question. And again, like with many aspects of CPD, HCPC don't tell us. They don't prescribe that you have to do it in a certain amount of detail. So everyone's style is different. HCPC do have some web pages on reflecting and reflecting in a way that meets the standards. So we can make sure we include those links in the follow-up materials.
Brilliant. And one final question on recordings. Is there a place to upload items other than within the reflections tab? So you can use, there's like a My Documents section.
Yeah, there's a My Documents section, but it's every time that you enter a reflection or a diary entry, you'll have the prompt to upload it. You can also add it retrospectively. So if you want to go into an entry you've already written and press edit, you just scroll down to the bottom and upload your documents there as well.
Brilliant. And just a follow-up question from Abby there, just around looking for a little bit more guidance around, I know we don't have an exact science of how long your reflections could be, but do we have any examples of completed entries that we can share?
We don't have those, but if again on the HCPC web pages, they have examples of
Yeah,
completed CPD profiles. Now, your CPD profile, if you are selected for audit, is a reflective piece. So they have lots of examples of CPD profiles that have gone through the audit process
yeah,
with a positive outcome. And I would highly recommend having a read of those. I think it really helps to demystify audit and makes it feel a lot less scary than it can sometimes seem.
definitely. Brilliant. Okay, so moving on, we are now, I know we've kind of talked a little bit throughout the session, and I've said, I think Charlene asked a question around how often do we need to do it? How do we build good habits? And I mean, you've pulled together 5 top tips. Before you get started with these top tips, I will say to anyone who wants to know a little bit more around that CPD habits and wants to be less in the detail of how to do it and more of the concept of how to get into the good CPD habits, I would really recommend catching up on the CPD New Year Reset session. We can include a link to it in the follow-up comms as well. I have put a link in the chat, but that session really goes into more detail around building good practices. So Emma's going to run you through some now, but anyone who's wanting to know how many pieces of CPD do I need to do, how many, all of those kind of key questions, that is all in another session as well, which goes into a lot more detail than what we're going to go into today on that bit. So Emma, sorry, go
It
go
does.
ahead.
That's fine. Yeah, so just really quickly, because it's come up, there isn't again a prescribed amount of CPD and there isn't a set amount of entries you need to put in. HCPC don't like to see gaps of 3 or more consecutive months in your CPD list of activities. So again, no right or wrong. I tend to approach my CPD on a monthly basis because I find that actually I'm going to be less likely to get into that situation where I have a big gap. A really key top tip in all of that is really recognizing the CPD you do as part of your everyday. CPD isn't just going on formal courses or formal education. We learn every single day. And so if we're able to recognize all of the things that count as CPD, we will have so many entries that you might end up not even recording them all because you have too many. But anyway, it's just to highlight you're doing loads of it already. It's just getting into the habit of recognizing it so we can then go on to record it. Think about how recording CPD works best for you. So we touched on it earlier, but whether you prefer the web version or the app, also how often, like how can you fit this into your everyday? We know that time is a really big barrier, but there are ways in which we can squeeze this into our sort of daily work and habits, and then it just makes staying on top of CPD much, much easier. One of the tips I do is I save the link to my portfolio as a favorite on my desktop browser, and I have my login details saved with a password manager. So within 2 clicks, I'm there ready to record something. So I'm far more likely to do it. If you struggle with feeling motivated, then it can be really handy to find a CPD buddy. It adds a social element. You can hold each other accountable, and just put a time in the diary to have a bit of a cup of tea or a coffee, either in person or over Teams, and just see what you can get done in half an hour. And then aiming for progress over perfection. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's your record. So trying to get into habits of logging your CPD, and then you can pick it up when you have more time to add more detail, for example. But I can see a few people sort of sharing some things in the chat. So do that, because each of you will have amazing tips that could inspire other people on the call. And I think I will leave it at that, Claudia, because I know we're short on time.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Emma. And like we say, we wanted to try and get through as many questions as we could today, but we're not. Please don't be a stranger if we haven't answered your question. We do have a couple of more slides to go through in the next 1 minute, so I'll try and do it as quick as I can. So thinking about what you're going to do after today's session. So please do go away, reflect on today's session, add a record in your CPD portfolio. And like I say, we are here if you need us. If you've got any specific questions around logging in, or if you need a little bit of extra support, you can always get in contact with us. I'll pop the details, our details on the end of the slide as well. Just moving on to the next slide. We want to know all of your CPD needs and how you kind of need support from us. We have recently launched our Member Insights panel, and we're going to be doing through the Member Insights panel, which is just a group of members who have signed up to say that they're interested in sharing their thoughts with us. We are going to be doing a CPD survey in the next couple of months. So if you are interested, please do sign up to the Member Insights panel. You can do so on the screen there just by scanning that QR code. We will share the details in the follow-up as well. But if you are interested, want to take part in the CPD survey. You need to sign up before the 27th of February to be included. And moving on, finally, I did talk a little bit at the top of the session about our new website. We're also launching our new RCOT Communities, which is an online community platform where you can all connect with each other. And we've also got, and you're going to have a new membership account, all as part of the new RCOT website. So please do keep an eye out on your emails. For this, we are transforming our digital experience for members. We've heard your comments. We know that our website isn't where it needs to be, and we know that you are looking for better online service from us. So change is coming in spring, and please do keep an eye on your emails. Last but not least, those of you who are still on the call with us, there is still a good amount of people on the call. I am going to ask us another question. And what I will ask you is, how confident do you now feel with your CPD portfolio? So if we can move on to the next slide. We've got a slide on this, yeah. Well, spoiler alert, but there has been some progress, which is very good to hear. There are some people that are still not feeling so confident. I'll just wait until the numbers slow down. Remember, this is the beginner session, so whilst we know that we do have some members out there who are pros, they kind of are a little bit more suited for the intermediate session. But now everyone's feeling somewhat confident. We haven't got anyone who's not sure where to start anymore. So I think we've all learned something today, which is very exciting. And it's lovely to see that you've all learned from each other. If you have enjoyed today's session, or if there is any feedback that you would like to give us, I am now going to just very quickly pop a feedback form in the chat. Let me see how quickly I can multitask here. Okay, hopefully that works. Please do let us know if you've enjoyed the session, if you need some more content from us. We are guided by what you need. And we don't know what you need unless you tell us. So please do let us know how you found today's session, if there was enough content, anything else that you want to know more of, if you had any difficulties logging on or anything like that, please do share them in that feedback form. It's the only way that we're going to know what you're thinking. Is by you telling us what you're thinking. So yeah, please do. And thank you so much for all the lovely comments in the chat and for choosing to spend your lunchtime or the start of your afternoon with us today. Emma, any final thoughts for you before we close the session down?
Yeah, just really fantastic questions today, because the chances are if you've asked it, someone else in the room was thinking it. And we're going to be running more sessions to kind of take you on this journey with us. So we'll look out for future sessions and we'd love to see you there.
Brilliant. And thank you. I know we've gone slightly over time, we're 3 minutes, so please do forgive us for that, but hopefully it was worth it in terms of having your questions answered. And yeah, it's lovely to see all of the thank you messages. We are going to close the session down now, but if you do need us, we're at hello@rcot.co.uk. That is our email address. You can access us. You can access our services via the website as well. So if you've got a query, please do get in contact with us. And don't be a stranger. We want to know how you're getting on with your CPD. If you now go away and become a CPD extraordinaire, please do let us know, because we'd love to hear how you're getting on. So yeah, have a lovely rest of your day, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We'll see you all soon.